Right guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a G80 M3 competition with us. So we've had this car over the space of a couple of weeks. Came in with a tuning box on it. So first things first, we got the car on the dyno, ran it up with a tuning box, collected a load of data from the ECU, and the car actually made some pretty decent power on a tuning box. It made 650 brake horsepower and 630 foot-pound of torque. In typical tuning box fashion, it doesn't do it in the most controlled, safest manner. So it was closing the throttle quite a lot, and the target lambda was really lean for the power. So it made the power, but it wasn't the safest. The reported torque were all over the place because it was basically just tricking the sensors, which isn't good for the gearbox. So with this being a G80 M3, the ECUs are locked. So we can't tune them OBD, we can't tune them bench or boot mode. They're on lockdown. So we've had the ECU out of this car, sent it to Russia. They've unlocked this ECU to enable us to tune the vehicle. So the ECU is installed back in the car now, so we can start our tuning process. But before we wanted to start tuning the car, we had to remove the tuning box. And once we removed the tuning box, we ran the car 100% stock, so we could get a baseline, get all the stock data from the ECU, get the stock power figures and stuff. So then we had a base platform to work with when we started developing the tune for the car. In stock form, with the high flow mid pipe and cat back, the car made 548 brake horsepower and 540 foot-pound of torque. So obviously this car is supposed to be 500 brake horsepower standard, 510-ish. BMW are always known to kind of sandbag the power figures on any of the competition cars, well, all the performance cars basically. So this car is running quite a bit more than what they state. So we started tuning the car, made a base, ran good power on the base map, and then we've just been bumping it up bit by bit from there. And we've actually finished tuning this car now, which made impressive figures. We finished off at 693 brake horsepower and 678 foot-pound of torque, which is a ridiculous amount of power for basically a standard car. Just 99 octane fuel, no ethanol, no octane booster, just a solid tune, and that's what it's making. It's incredible. So we've actually made quite a lot of power over the tuning box and in a safer manner. So we've got lambda going down to 0.78 to keep the cats nice and cool. Throttle plate is wide open the entire run. The boost control is just flat at 1.65 bar, going to about 1.7 bar. So like it's completely dialed in. The reported torque in the ECU is nice and high, which is going to give the gearbox all the information it needs to be able to shift the car properly. So we've gained an extra 60 foot-pound of torque in the mid-range, and we've gained an extra 50 brake horsepower at peak. It actually holds onto the power a lot longer now. On the tuning box, the lambda were that lean that the ECU was just pulling all the timing out towards the top of the rev range. Now we've got that timing back, we've been able to add a little bit of timing in with the richer lambda. So now we're making the power all the way up to 7,000 RPM. The power never drops off. I'm a little bit worried about this car being a rear wheel drive car because it's got that much power. I think it's going to be undrivable. So we might end up having to bring it down a little bit. And the car's got P0s on it, so anybody who knows tyres knows that P0s aren't the one. So I'm going to test drive it, see how it drives, and I might end up just calming it down a little bit until the better weather and he changes his tyres. I'm impressed with this platform. I think it's going to be one to watch in the future. And yeah, we'll test drive it on the road. Good to go. Customer can have it back and enjoy it. MDM will still let you spin the car. Yeah. It won't, like if you enter a corner and your back end comes out, it'll let you spin it. Yeah. But it does enough so that you can still mess about with it. It kind of keeps it under control still. So for like people who are used to driving cars like this, you can jump in it, put it in MDM and you can have some fun with it. But like if it were your own car and you're used to the power and how it drove, you'd have it at traction off. It's like F80s, I jump in them and turn it fully off. Obviously I'm not familiar with this one. It feels nice though. Like the way that it turns in and stuff. So these are the data logs that we've collected from the ECU. What we've got overlaid here is our tune versus the tuning box, just to show the differences between the tuning box and the actual ECU tune. So anything that's solid in this log is the tune, anything that's dotted is the tuning box. So this line going across here, thick blue line, is the throttle position. So when we start the run, obviously 100% throttle. As we go up through the RPM, you can see that the tuning box drops down to 50%. So it closes the throttle plate at 50% because it's having to intervene because it's overshooting its torque target basically. It does this a few times throughout the run, which is not what you want. You can see that the boost curve here, the light blue, is a bit all over the place. Obviously once we've tuned it, it's nice and flat throughout the whole rev range, literally all the way up to 7,000 RPM. But the one thing that's caught my attention with this tuning box is something that I don't like at all. So on these engines, BMW in particular, they like to keep the engine as lean as possible and then enrich it at the last minute, which is fine on a stock car, and BMW have used numerous extra sensors. It's got exhaust gas sensors, exhaust manifold pressure sensors, all these extra things while developing the engine to basically know how lean they can leave the fuel in and how long for. But the cars on the tuning box, it's making a hell of a lot more power but still using the same fueling strategy. So on the tuning box, it's still at 1 lambda at 5,000 RPM, which is, in my opinion, is just way too lean. So as the boost comes in, load goes up, it starts to target a richer lambda instantly, not waiting for component protection to come in. So it's basically like a driver's demand lambda instead. So as soon as the load goes up, boost comes in, the ECU drops down to 0.87 lambda, and then it blends nicely into 0.78. towards the rev range, towards the end of the rev range, which is nice and rich to keep the cats cool and keep the engine happy. So they're the differences between a tuning box and an actual ECU cal. Yeah, the tuning box made some power, but the way that it does it isn't safe in my opinion.